Welcome! Today we are jumping into one of the most incredible stories in the entire book of Genesis. It's a story about a favorite son, some seriously jealous brothers, and a dream that kicks off a chain reaction that, honestly, changes the world. We're talking about Joseph from Genesis chapter 37. Let's dive right in. We're actually going to start with the punchline. This is where all the tension leads. A family just poisoned by a hatred so deep they can't even manage a simple hello. This line from verse 4 is the end of the road. So, now we're going to walk through this chapter verse by verse to see exactly how they ended up here. So yeah, how does a family get to its breaking point? Well, the whole conflict is built on a father who just doesn't hide his favoritism, a gift that becomes a symbol of that envy, and a bad report that basically turns brother against brother. Okay, verse 1 just sets the stage for us. Jacob's living in Canaan. Easy enough. But verse 2 drops us right into the conflict with our main guy. So picture this. Joseph is 17 years old. He's out in the fields, tending the flocks with his older brothers. But he's not really one of them. He's more like an informant. The text says he brought a bad report about them back to their dad. You can just see it, right? Him running back to Jacob's tent, whispering about everything his brothers did wrong. He's the family tattletale. And now for verse 3. Jacob basically pours gasoline on this little fire of resentment. He gives Joseph this incredible gift, a tunic of many colors. Now just try to imagine this. Everything around them is dusty, brown, drab, shepherds in plain wool clothes. And then there's Joseph, practically glowing in this magnificent, expensive, colorful coat. This isn't just a piece of clothing. It's a walking, talking trophy that screams to everyone, hey, I'm the favorite son. And that brings us right back to verse 4, the quote we started with. Just see the brothers watching Joseph from a distance. Every single time they look at him, that coat is like this blinding reminder that their dad doesn't love them equally. Picture their fists clenching, their jaws getting tight. That simmering resentment just hardens into this cold, silent hatred. It's so bad they can't even speak to him anymore. You'd think things couldn't get more tense, right? Wrong. Joseph starts having these dreams. And in what might be the worst case of not reading the room ever, he decides to share them with the very people who already despise him. Okay, so verse 5 is pretty straightforward. Joseph has a dream, he tells his brothers, and surprise, surprise, it makes them hate him even more. Then in verses 6 and 7, he spells it out for them. Just picture a hot, sun-baked field. They're all out there harvesting wheat. And Joseph says, listen to this. My sheaf of wheat stood straight up, and all of your sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to mine. You can see that in your mind, can't you? One bundle of grain standing tall and proud, and 11 others just bowing right down to it. Now for verse 8. Oh, the brothers get the message. Loud and clear. Just picture them sneering, their voices just dripping with sarcasm as they shoot back. Oh, really? So you're going to reign over us now? You're going to be our king? Is that it? For them, this isn't just some weird dream. No, this is Joseph basically declaring how arrogant he is. And the text says they hated him even more for it. So Joseph doesn't learn his lesson. Not at all. Verse 9, he has another dream. And this time, he goes cosmic. Imagine Joseph looking up into the night sky and the entire universe just rearranges itself for him. In his dream, the sun, that's his father, the moon for his mother, and 11 stars for his brothers. They all bow down to him. In verse 10, he tells his entire family. And this time, even his doting father Jacob calls him out on it, saying, what is this dream? Am I, your mother, and your brothers all going to come and bow down to you? But verse 11. Verse 11 shows us two totally different reactions. Picture the brothers. Their faces are just twisted with jealousy. But then, picture Jacob, just quietly watching his son. While the brothers are burning with envy, their dad kept the matter in mind. He's wondering, could there actually be some truth to all this? And here's where the story takes a really dark turn. The brothers are away from home, far away from their father's watchful eye, and this distance, well, it creates the perfect isolated stage for all that simmering hatred to finally boil over into action. Verses 12 through 14 are all about setting the trap. Jacob, completely unaware, tells Joseph, hey, go check and see if your brothers are okay. It's a fatal errand. Then, verses 15 and 16 paint this picture of Joseph, all alone, totally vulnerable, just wandering around looking for them. And in verse 17, a stranger points him toward a place called Dothan. Just see him turning in that new direction, a lamb naively walking right toward a pack of wolves. Verse 18, they see him coming from a long way off. Imagine their point of view. It's this small figure in the distance, but you can't miss him because of that ridiculous, colorful coat. And before he even gets there, they're already plotting. Verses 19 and 20 are just chilling. Picture one brother turning to the others, a cruel smile on his face, saying, "Here comes the dreamer, let's kill him." Their plan is horribly simple. Murder him, dump his body in a pit, make up some story about a wild animal, and then they can sneer, "We'll see what becomes of his dreams then." But then, in verse 21, Reuben, the oldest brother, he steps in. He says, "Let's not kill him." He feels this flicker of responsibility. So in verse 22, he gives them another option. Don't shed any blood, just throw him into this pit. See him making the suggestion, but you have to know his secret plan. He was going to come back later, all by himself, pull Joseph out, and take him back to their dad. He wants to do the right thing, just not enough to actually stand up to his brothers. So, the moment of confrontation is here. Joseph finally arrives. He's probably tired, but happy he finally found them. He has absolutely no idea what's about to happen. Let's just walk through this brutal sequence. Verse 23. The very first thing they do is grab him and violently rip that coat, the coat they hate so much, right off his back. Just see it being torn from his shoulders. Verse 24. They throw him into a deep, empty pit. Picture him just falling into the darkness. And then, verse 25, maybe the most chilling detail of the whole story. They sat down and ate a meal. Just visualize that. They're casually having lunch while their own brother is sitting in a hole nearby. But as they're eating, Judah, in verse 26, comes up with a new plan. He asks, what do we even gain if we kill our brother? So, in verses 27 and 28, Joseph's fate is sealed. Judah's idea takes root just as a caravan of traders appears on the horizon. They pull their brother out of the dark pit, only to sell him. For 20 pieces of silver, the standard price for a slave back then, they hand him over. And with that cold-hearted transaction, just picture Joseph being led away in chains on his way to Egypt. Now, the last part of this chapter isn't really about Joseph's fate in Egypt. No, it's about the detailed, devastating lie the brothers come up with, a lie that is going to haunt their family for decades to come. Verse 29, Reuben comes back to be the hero, but he's too late. Can you imagine the horror on his face when he looks into that empty pit? He rips his clothes in despair. But in verse 31, the other brothers are busy with their cover story. And what a grim scene it is. They kill a goat, and they deliberately soak that beautiful, multicolored coat in its blood, staining it deep red. Verse 32 shows you just how cruel and cunning they are. They don't even say he's dead. They take the bloody coat to Jacob and they ask, "We found this. Can you tell us if it's your son's coat or not?" See them holding it out, forcing their own father to come to the most painful conclusion possible. The gap between what he thinks happened and what they actually did is it's a canyon of their own making. Verse 33, Jacob knows it's Joseph's coat instantly, and his whole world just collapses. Verse 34 shows his unbelievable grief. Picture him ripping his own clothes and putting on sackcloth, this rough, itchy fabric that was a sign of deep mourning. And then in verse 35, all his other children, the very ones who caused all this pain, they try to comfort him, and he just pushes them away, vowing to mourn for his son until the day he dies. And the chapter ends on this shocking cliffhanger in verse 36. The story cuts away from the grieving family and follows Joseph. He's not dead. He's alive. He's in Egypt, and he's just been sold again. This time to a man named Potiphar, who is an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard. Joseph is at the absolute bottom. He's a slave in a foreign country, and his dreams seem like they're crushed forever. So this is where we're left, a young dreamer sold into slavery, his future seemingly wiped out by the hatred of his own family. It really looks like jealousy and betrayal won the day. But this story is far, far from over, and it leaves us with this huge question. What's more powerful in the long run? A dream from God, or an act of human hatred? Well, the rest of Joseph's story is going to give us the answer.